So give us a little insight into what your bottom lines are. What is going to get the Strait reopened? Because this is kind of the only question that matters for American consumers right now. And every day we get wildly different signals from the president as to whether he even is engaged in this question as to whether the Strait is going to reopen.
Yeah, I think your question gets right to the heart of the matter. So I think it's a good question. Let me first bifurcate two things. The only reason there's a blockade, the only reason why there's a U.S. blockade is because Iran has closed they're firing on commercial ships.
Welcome back to the podcast. What we just witnessed at the House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing wasn't just a regular legislative budget defense, it was a definitive battle over the future of American sovereignty. Secretary of State Marco Rubio took the stand to lay out the administration's foreign affairs budget, only to face an immediate, highly partisan ambush from establishment politicians. From a conservative Republican perspective, this hearing exposes the absolute peak of deep state panic. For decades, the Washington elite has operated on a broken playbook, pouring trillions of taxpayer dollars into unchecked globalist programs and uncoordinated foreign proxy wars, all while completely neglecting our domestic reality. Think about the staggering policy failure here. While the establishment fights tooth and nail to protect bloated international spending accounts, regular American families are facing crumbling local infrastructure, economic uncertainty, and a devastating domestic health crisis. Instead of engaging in an honest, fact-based debate on fiscal restraint or strategic clarity, progressive lawmakers resorted to weak emotional grandstanding. But Rubio completely stood his ground, refusing to let career politicians twist the facts. This exchange is a masterclass in dismantling a bad faith establishment narrative. Let's roll the tape. If you want honest conservative analysis without the mainstream media spin, subscribe and turn on notifications right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us today. Despite the differences that existed between Republicans and Democrats prior to this administration on how to approach Iran's nuclear program, the theory was basically the same, that we were going to impose significant harm on the Iranian economy in order to force them to the table to negotiate. What is happening now is fundamentally different. This war and the administration's decision to blockade has now held the entire world economy and the U.S. economy hostage to the ability to negotiate an agreement with Iran. This is why the entire country is seized by the question of when there will be an agreement, because apparently until there is an agreement, the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. There is a cost to the Iranian economy, but now there is a devastating cost to the U.S. economy. It has been indecipherable, the information coming from the administration, especially in the past several weeks, as we get signals that a deal is imminent. The president said yesterday he's bored by the negotiations. He doesn't care whether we get a deal. I think it's really important for us to understand what your bottom lines are, what you're asking for in this negotiation, what commitments you need Iran to make in order for you to release the blockade, and we hope for them to release the blockade as well. So give us a little insight into what your bottom lines are. What is going to get the Strait reopened? Because this is kind of the only question that matters for American consumers right now. And every day we get wildly different signals from the president as to whether he even is engaged in this question as to whether the Strait is going to reopen.
Yeah, I think your question gets right to the heart of the matter. So I think it's a good question. Let me first bifurcate two things. The only reason there's a blockade, the only reason why there's a U.S. blockade is because Iran has closed they're firing on commercial ships, and they've mined large segments of Hormuz, international waters. And so the blockade is only against Iranian ships. And it's very simple. The notion is if no one's ships are going to get out, then Iran's ships aren't going to get out either. We can't live in a world in which they get to close the straits and tell everybody, pay us a toll or we'll blow you up, but their ships get to go out unfettered. So that's the reason why there's a blockade. There wouldn't have been a blockade if Iran had agreed to do what they said they would do when the ceasefire kicked in, which is they were going to open the straits. So let me just focus on the straits for a moment. Number one, what they're doing is unlawful and illegal. There isn't a country on earth, other than Iran, and maybe Oman that flirted with it, who's in favor of what Iran is doing in the straits. The Chinese are against it. The Russians are against it. Everyone is against it. The whole world is against it. So condition number one is they have to reopen the straits. And reopening the straits means the following. Ships can sail through international waters the way they can do through other choke points around the world without being fired upon, without paying a toll. That's condition number one.
But the strait is closed because of our decision to invade Iran. This is a consequence of our military action. So I guess I'm not interested in litigating that question. We all know why the strait is closed, because you took military action against Iran, and we knew ahead of time that that would be their likely response. The question is, how are we going to get it reopened? Are you going to drive a bargain that is so tough and so hard that the strait remains closed? So how are we going to get it open?
The first thing, that is a predicate to anything else happening. The straits have to be reopened. So the way to think about it is this. If Iran wants to be able to move its oil again through the strait, they will have to reopen the straits.
That was an absolute powerhouse performance from Secretary Marco Rubio. If you ever wanted a clear example of how the Washington establishment is completely uncoupled from the realities facing everyday citizens, this hearing gave it to you in plain English. The career politicians on that committee walked into the room fully expecting to bully the secretary and protect their favorite globalist slush funds. Instead, they ran straight into a brick wall of logic and America First resolve. Let's break down the sheer hypocrisy of the opposition's arguments. Progressive committee members tried to frame the administration's budget priorities as reckless, claiming that any reduction in bloated, unaccountable foreign aid packages would compromise global stability. But isn't it remarkable how these very same politicians can sit on a committee dais and lecture the nation on international stability while completely ignoring the ongoing collapse of American sovereignty, economic security, and public health at home? This is the exact reason why the populist conservative movement and the powerful Trump RFK Jr. and MAGA coalition is gaining overwhelming momentum across the country. The swamp has built a multi-trillion-dollar industry of funding foreign entanglements and international bureaucracies, completely insulated from the consequences of their actions. They treat American taxpayer money like an unlimited piggy bank for globalist initiatives, while domestic priorities rot from the inside out. When Rubio firmly defended the necessity of fiscal accountability and strategic clarity, he completely flipped the script. He forced the committee to face the ultimate double standard. The establishment is always ready to sign a blank check for foreign interests, but they immediately cry foul the moment reformers demand that we prioritize the health, safety, and financial well-being of the American people first. From a policy and constitutional perspective, what conservatives should love about this exchange is the raw refusal to back down under partisan posturing. The opposition didn't have any data-driven arguments. They had nothing but scripted talking points designed to preserve their institutional control. When you strip away their dramatic theater, their case completely falls apart. How will this affect public opinion? It is going to severely backfire on the DC elite. Regular, hard-working Americans watching this footage aren't going to see a serious foreign policy debate. They are going to see an out-of-touch political class that cares much more about globalist optics than the survival of the American middle class. This confrontation was a massive win for transparency and common sense. It proved that the days of conservative leaders submissively accepting the swamp's lectures are completely over. By aggressively defending a realistic America First budget, Rubio exposed the left's total lack of intellectual honesty and delivered a powerful victory for limited government and national accountability.